We're back for your ears only. I'm Eddie Robinson.
I'm David Alpern with this quote from the news. They give them out like Skittles. That was Ron Davis on concealed handgun permits in Florida, like the one held by the man charged with second-degree murder for killing his 17-year-old son in an argument over loud music in a convenience store parking lot. Michael Dunn, who is white, said he thought the black youth had pointed a shotgun at him, though no such weapon was found. Now this.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Berets.
Before robot drones and super commando SEALs became the symbols of U.S. military special operations, that role was filled by the Green Berets of Army Special Forces, master airborne fighters, but also trainers, language and area specialists. And there is reason to think that they may take a more prominent role once again, or should, as conventional troops leave Afghanistan, and the administration considers stepped-up assistance to the confusing mix of more and less Islamist opposition to the Assad regime in Syria.
A number of European and Mideast nations have recognized the latest amalgam of Syrian opposition forces, promising a significant financial and military aid, and the rebels have seized or received enough shoulder-fired anti-aircraft firepower to down an Assad helicopter, at least on YouTube. But the Obama administration remains worried by reports that many weapons are going to groups least likely to be sympathetic to U.S. interests.
To talk more about terror and war on various fronts and the role of Green Berets and other unconventional U.S. forces, for your ears only, we're joined now by retired Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schwalm, a 20-year veteran of the Special Forces with a Bronze Star for Valor from earlier service as a tank company commander in the First Gulf War. Schwalm is just back from civilian service for the Pentagon with social scientists of Afghanistan. His new book is The Guerrilla Factory, The Making of Special Forces Officers, The Green Beret, from Free Press, Simon & Schuster. Welcome to our program, sir.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the different skills and roles of Navy SEALs, sea, air, land operators, and the Green Berets. I like your comparison to Superman and Daniel Boone.
Right. And the reality is we have very similar capabilities. The point I try to make in the book is that when you decide you're going to add a language requirement to someone who has demonstrated his, physical prowess to be inside the special ops community, you've levied on him a very time-consuming effort. It takes a lot to get a language, and with the language comes an understanding of culture. And the whole purpose of that is to work with, by and through indigenous forces of other countries. And so you end up going on training missions and then in combat employment having to have that cultural skill. And it's almost impossible to sustain the commando skills that most people think of to the level that you would find in some of the other special operations if you're going to be the one who's spending months and months working in other countries where the resources, quite honestly, are just not available to continue to hone that skill. So that's why I use the comparison of Daniel Boone to Superman. We're very good with our weapons, but you have to add then the time required to sustain cross-cultural communication skills.
Recent history shows that training local forces can be more dangerous than opposing them in secret assaults like the one that killed Osama bin Laden by the SEALs. I'm thinking of the green-on-blue attacks on U.S. trainers in Afghanistan. Have Green Berets faced that before?
Absolutely. It's actually integrated into the training. One story I did not include in the book is a Special Forces training team was in their Robin Sage, their final exercise of the qualification course, and they walked into the G-base, and there were all these graves with Green Berets on sticks on each of the graves, and it had been set up to try to see if the SF team could realize that they'd walked into an ambush. And it took them a little longer than they needed to, or they would have hoped to, had it been real. But the reality is you face green on blue every time you're working with another country because everybody's got a gun, and you don't know the cross-cultural communication faux pas that you just committed that could, make you pull the trigger.
What did your recent mission in Afghanistan teach you about this problem there and how to solve it before the Afghan government forces are much more on their own?
I would say at the tactical level, you're going to have people who can speak the local language. The reliance on interpreters right now have created a tremendous vulnerability in both the special ops and the conventional force. We don't know when we've said something or done something, to a host, to an Afghan host. At the macro level, at the strategic and political level, we've got to demonstrate that we're serious about the time requirement and the resource requirement to make Afghanistan be something other than an al-Qaeda safe haven.
We hear one option being considered by Washington for support of Syrian rebels is insertion of CIA specialists to train and assist them. Once it's a public policy, not a secret war, wouldn't Green Berets be at least as well suited for that role? Is it a good idea, basically?
Absolutely, we'd be suited. The good idea part of that is the legitimacy piece. You on the one hand, you want to help someone overthrow an oppressive dictator. On the other, the nature of the political climate right now in the Middle East and through most of Asia is you want U.S. firepower, but you really don't want a U.S. handprint on anything you're doing because it can delegitimize you in the long run, and ultimately you'll end up with a fractured political system because it can't find the legitimacy it needs either among the local population or in the surrounding countries because you look like a U.S. puppet.
What do you think of the proposals to give anti-aircraft batteries to Turkey to protect its borders from the Syrian fighting, but maybe also in the process create de facto no-fly zones on the Syrian side where rebel groups and displaced civilians could seek sanctuary?
Well, I think absolutely. Turkey's a NATO ally. Whatever they need to protect themselves would be available under the provisions of the NATO treaty. But there's a nuance to no-fly zone, and when you say no-fly zone, the implied task is that first someone's going to own the sky. And in order to own the sky, that means you have to eliminate everything on the ground that can shoot down what is trying to own the sky. So in that case, there would definitely be a lot of destruction on the Syrian side to make sure that they did not have the air defense systems that could deny a no-fly zone. Does that make sense?
Indeed it does. Retired Green Beret Lieutenant Colonel Tony Schwalm's new book is The Guerrilla Factory from Free Press, Simon Schuster.
Quote from the news, people joke about it, but it's not so crazy, really. That was a UCLA geology professor on evidence from NASA's Messenger spacecraft that there's ice on Mercury and perhaps water under the surface that could help support a colony from Earth.
Next, Steel Magnolias at 25, a special anniversary for your ears only.